So, in the last video, I talked about the original Segway mobility concept and the electric unicycle, which I thought of as its spiritual successor, more specifically the Ninebot Z10, which I happen to love. And I think he is listening. And why I thought that they could have, but failed to change the world. I think this guy.
And towards the end, I claimed that if the Segway mobility concept had actually caught on, that it would have fundamentally changed our relationship to distance and space itself. Woo! I got a little bit out there, didn't I? So, since we talked about why it never happened, this week we're going to talk about the here and now, or where our botched future have left us. In another word, what it's like to live in the future while being trapped in the past, and my weekly obsession returned with the upgrade to my monster selfie stick. Boy, I'm really not helping those Asian stereotypes. And finally, just when I thought that the e-boarding group had turned in for the winter, what do you know? A group ride. As always, if you enjoy the show, please subscribe and like the video. Alright, good morning. It is Monday morning, and it's 13 degrees outside, and I have a full busy work week ahead of me, which makes me really not want to get out of the house. But at least it is sunny and dry, which means that I get to ride the Z10 to work. And did I say it was cold? I mean, it is really, really cold. But we'll manage as long as we layer it up properly.
So the comfortable speed tops out at around 18 to 20 miles per hour. I know that's not considered to be fast, especially compared to some of the YouTube speedster out there. And the Z10 is technically capable of faster speeds.
But this is New York City, and there are traffic lights, random pedestrian busy checking their phone, delivery person loading and unloading, and as I mentioned previously, the occasional hidden police checkpoint to help our friendly NYPDs to fill their ticket quotas, which technically do not exist. But we all know, right?
Also, during the work week, I tend not to gear up as fully as I do on weekends. So I tried not to go overboard with the speed, lest I take another fall and lose another teeth, which would be not so good of a look for going to work. Woo-hoo.
Anyway, so 18 to 20 means that a 10-mile commute takes about 35-40 minutes tops. A good bit faster than a bicycle, since you're able to cruise at your top speed without sweating up a storm and ruining your hair and that nice shirt your wife just got you. So we save 10 to 20 minutes each way and still get to pick up breakfast. Wouldn't be New York without those breakfast carts. It may not seem like much, but it does add up over time. Wouldn't it be great to have a few extra hours a week to spend with your kids? I also go for lunch run with the Wheel, and since I can cover about 1.5 miles in 5 minutes, it expands my lunch options quite a bit.
Now, considering that a burger is $15 in Soho, at popular places like Delicatessen right here, which is a cool joint to hang if you can afford $20 lunches, and unfortunately I cannot. But fortunately, lunch is a lot cheaper one neighborhood over. Chinatown, more specifically Big One. This is like one of my favorite lunch spots.
Roast pork, duck and egg over rice for $7.50. If you ever visit, this is where you come for really good food and really cheap eats.
So part of the reason why that burger was $15, aside from the chic decor and the good-looking patrons, that is, and of course they'll probably never let me in, is that as you expect, a large part of that cost goes towards rent. And rent is crazy expensive in Soho. And the rationale being that, the proximity to all the coolness that is Soho deserve a premium.
However, that is rationale that is rooted in the concept of proximities. And if you're able to travel 10 blocks instead of 1 in 5 minutes, the meaning of that word becomes very different, since it is actually a measurement of not distance, but time.
So the electric unicycle, and to a certain battery limited extent, the electric skateboard, breaks that proximity monopoly and allow you access to a much larger area. So it's not just a matter of faster commute, but actually better lifestyle.
Now I know that this is a very urban-centric view. Having lived in a city all my life, I get that it is very different if you live and work in a suburb, and in that context, as in since the suburb was after all built around cars, I wouldn't be quite so sure if these newfangled personal transportation devices would still make sense, since the infrastructure aren't really designed around vehicles that cruises below 25 miles per hour.
So it's a better way to get around. But how is it any better than, let's say, an electric bicycle? And how does that change our relationship to space? Well, allow me to explain. But first, my weekly obsessions return.
So on the last ride, my attempt at upgrading my selfie stick failed spectacularly by literally falling apart mid-ride, tripping the Z10 and causing me to go splat faceplant. You didn't think I was going to give up from just that, did you? I first upgraded the gimbal by getting the Veteran WG2X, which has been performing beautifully, I have to say. However, holding a long stick with a camera at the end of it, aside from looking weird like I'm going to some sort of a joust, is also tiring to the point of distraction on a ride. So this is what I came up with. It's sort of a low-tech solution to a high-tech problem. Counterweight from Newer, the king of budget camera parts on Amazon. At 4.6 pounds, it actually does an excellent job of counterbalancing the weight of the camera at the far end of the stick, to the point where I can almost hold it with just one finger. The other thing you notice is that it does a very good job of smoothing out the Z-axis movement of the camera, so that when I'm swinging it around, the footage doesn't look as jerky as it does if I were to just hold this free hand. So the only thing I need on top of this is a remote control, so I could actually aim the gimbal, or just have it turn around to face me versus away. There is a remote control that Veteran actually make, however they recently discontinued it, so I'm hoping that they will release an update, a newer, better version of it, I hope. Back to the rides, and while we're at it, let's hop on the New York City e-boarding group ride, and for a second there I thought these guys are totally all home hibernating.
So the thing I learned about design is that little things really matters. Not only do they matter, oftentimes it's the little things. Sometimes things that you even take for granted are the one that makes all the differences.
There was a moment when Steve Jobs demoed the multi-touch interface for the very first time by scrolling.
Well, how do I scroll through my list of artists? How do I do this? I just take my finger and I scroll. That's it.
You have to remember what seems obvious now was not a thing until that very moment. I mean, do you hear the gas coming from the crowd? It was like a collective eureka moment for the entire audience as they all go, oh my god, that is how you do it. Being able to touch the web, as Steve first described it, fundamentally changed our relationship to information and data. Not that a stylus don't work, but it prevents you from making that more intuitive connection than the touch did.
Similarly, the control scheme on both the Segway and the electric unicycle, like the Z10 here, both utilize muscle control from your legs, which also happens to be the appendages that you use to control how you get around anyway. Yes, you can use a remote for the throttle as well as the brake. However, having to reroute your motor control through your hand is a little bit less intuitive. It's as if you're trying to eat your dinner with your feet. You can do it, but let's say it's just not as intuitive or fun for that matter.
The other advantage of reading the stylus is that instead of a single point of interaction via the tip of the pen, you get 5 because you have 5 fingers.
So in eliminating the remote controller, it also frees up both of your hands, which might not seem like a big deal at first. However, the world is filled with interaction that require both of your hands, and this is also why hand presence is critical when it comes to inversion in virtual reality. And the reason being that it's not enough for you to be able to see, you also need to be able to interact in order for you to feel present.
Having both hands free was the reason why I started recording my rides, which ultimately turned into this vlog you're watching right now. So yes, it's kind of a thing.
It's this combination of intuitive control, along with, greatly enhancing our mobility, and the fact that it doesn't really compromise our ability to be present in the places that we visit, that make me think of the electric unicycle or my Z10 as a bionic augmentation, and probably because I'm a super nerd.
Now, most modes of transport, including cars and train, focuses on point-to-point travel, and for the past 100 years, we have built our city and our world around this concept.
And this is why the Grand Central is called the Grand Central, because it's meant to be both a grand entry as well as the central nexus of the city. However, over time, people have begun to see the limitation of this view. That the world isn't just a checklist of destination, and they have begun to see the value of incidental proximity and the connection that something like that could facilitate. And what I meant by that is simply, it's nice to be around cool places and cool people. And this is why everyone is moving to the city, despite the $15 burger.
But as our city ages and density explodes, neither public transportation nor automobile have been able to keep up. Since the cost of upgrading infrastructure grows exponentially as they age, the MTA of New York City and all of the problem our subway system has experienced in recent years being the prime example. Combined with the fact that those who rely on public transportation the most oftentimes have the least leverage when it comes to policy making. So in response, we have resorted to stopgap measures like Uber or bike sharing programs. But since they still rely on traditional means of transportation, they suffer the same congestion and range limitation issues and do not change the status quo. But I think the electric unicycle, on the other hand, is something new. It balances precariously both on the cusp of revolution and obscurity. It's capable of providing a backdoor to a future where proximity is ubiquitous and physical access is shared by all, just as the mobile web have equalized information access. It is also easy for those whom do not understand it to see it either as a threat to public safety or an expensive toy for the wealthy techno class like Google Glass. So, which way would it go? Oh my god, once again I ran way over schedule. And if you stuck around all the way to the end, I really appreciate you taking time out to listen to me babble. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and leave your comments below. I would also love to hear back from you. Until the next video, thank you!